we're moving on to the climax of the event, the evening keynote. Well, this personality, he is a founder, investor, and a speaker. Well, if we go back, at the age of 13, he founded an award-winning clean water NGO for Asia, then launched a successful import and export business, generating over $500,000 in annual revenue. He's not yet 20, and he founded the Flight Car together with 2 partners, and he was ranked by Forbes in the 30 under 30 as the youngest entrepreneurs ever to raise $20 million in venture capital. His newest venture is CustomSpaces. He will offer a practical look at how he has launched secured funding, pivoted and succeeded, all before his 22nd birthday. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our evening keynote speaker, Kevin Petrovic.
So continuing the theme here, let them get paid, please. Let us make it all clear. Me, Cheryl, both of us, this is really, really important to the success of this ecosystem. But before I really start, can we just give a big, big round of applause to ICTA and everyone who organized this event? What a fantastic event. So I know everybody must be tired. It's toward the end of the day, but they told me I have to entertain you for 45 minutes. So I'm going to try. I don't know if I can succeed. But I thought what I would do is I'd first tell you a little bit about my story, what I've done, to maybe a little bit inspiring, and then tell you, kind of what I've learned from that and what I think you might be able to take away in Sri Lanka here in the ecosystem, what might help you get your own business off the ground. So a little bit about me to start. When people see the entrepreneurship and startups that I've done before, they say, Kevin, do your parents have a business? Are your parents entrepreneurs? And no, the answer is they're not. Both of my parents are from a small Eastern European country called Slovakia, and they immigrated to the United States, first-generation immigrants. And they both are very highly educated, have PhDs, scientists, chemical researchers. So really, there's no one in my family that has a startup background, no one that's an entrepreneur. My parents both really wanted the best success for me and my brother. So we had an excellent school, very big opportunities to do whatever we wanted, to try different things. But even then, I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. I never had this idea. It just kind of happened, and I'll explain that to you now. So hopefully many of you recognize this. It's about 10 years old now. It's the very, very first iPhone that came out in 2007. And I remember I was about 13 years old when this iPhone came out, and it looked like the coolest thing in the world to me. And I had about $600, $700 saved of my own money, and I immediately went, as soon as it was released in the store, and bought one, because I thought it was that cool. A few weeks later, I traveled to Slovakia, where I spent every summer when I was growing up with my family, and I started showing the phone to people, and people were really excited. People loved this product. People thought it was so cool, and they wanted to have one. But they couldn't, because the first iPhone was only sold in the United States. My cousin, who lives in Slovakia, and I started talking about it, and we said, maybe there's an opportunity here. What if we bought iPhones, brought them to Slovakia, and sold them? So we decided to try. My cousin put in money for 1 iPhone, and my parents lent us money to buy 2 iPhones, so we could buy 3. And we bought 3, we sent them to Slovakia, we sold them, and made a profit. And that was really the very first business transaction that I had, 13 years old. It grew from there. So you can see a little bit more than 3 on the left, and a lot more than 3 on the right. And so as we continued to send these iPhones and do this business, we got better, we got smarter, we figured out new tactics on how to do it. We branched into different products, not just iPhones, but also tablets, other smartphones, cameras. It really was just me and my cousin, not a company at all. But we did make money, and so it was a business. I'll always remember the day. I traveled a lot for this business too, because we had partners in different cities around the world. Often, we wouldn't just buy in the US. We would buy from Hong Kong and sell in Europe. We would buy from South Korea and sell in the United States. And I would fly. Friday after school, I would go to the airport. I would get on the plane, fly to Hong Kong, and then I would meet a partner or meet some customers who would buy or sell us a lot of phones. And the first time I ever did this, I showed up at this gentleman's store, and he couldn't believe it. He was like, "What's happening?" And he was like, "You can't be Kevin." And I was like, No, I'm Kevin." And he was just shocked that I was 15 years old and I showed up in Hong Kong to do this deal, to buy. I can't remember what kind of phone it was, but to buy 20 of these phones, it was just shocking to him. So I did this business for quite a few years, but then in the last year of my secondary school education, I was having lunch with a different friend, and we were talking about some companies that we had read about in the news. I'm sure many of you, almost all of you, probably know Airbnb, but we had read about these other two companies called Getaround and Turo as well. And what these companies do is they basically allow you to rent your car out to someone else when you're not using it in the city. So for example, you take the bus to work every day. You don't need your car during the week, only on the weekend. So you can rent it out to other people who might need it for just a few hours. Maybe you have a big car, someone can go shopping, or you have a convertible, someone can go to the beach. So these three companies were all doing very, very well. People liked using them. And we thought that was really interesting. And we were inspired by these companies to come up with this idea for FlightCar. Because I was at the airport all the time, we said that if people are willing to share their car in the city, wouldn't they be even more willing to share their car at the airport? Because not only do you make money on the car, but you also save money as well. We improve the value for the customer. And that was where the idea came from. At first, we thought it was completely crazy, because there were so many reasons that we thought the idea wouldn't work. After all, we were only 17 years old and we had never even rented a car. So how could we go start a car rental company? Well, we liked the idea so much that we decided to do research to try to understand the industry, the insurance, the laws, the prices. We didn't even know how much people would pay for the cars. So we wanted to find out all of this to decide whether this business was possible. A different problem we had, but equally challenging, was that we were both supposed to go to university, me and my co-founder. And we really liked this opportunity. We thought it was great, but we also knew that there was a high chance that we wouldn't succeed. So we came up with an idea to use the university as a backup plan. In the United States, there's a concept called a gap year. It's a year between the secondary school and the university, which allows students to do whatever they want. They can travel, they can work at a job, they can go on a religious trip, or even start a company. So we said, we'll delay our university for 1 year, we'll have it as a backup plan, a safety, and then we'll go start this company. My parents thought it was totally crazy, but I made a presentation for them, similar to this one, but a little bit smaller, and convinced them over the period of a few weeks to let me do this. And they finally agreed. Then, after that, we still realized we knew nothing about how to start this business. It's really complicated when you start thinking about what are the pieces that are needed. And we didn't know anything about startups. We weren't in the ecosystem. We didn't know the words. We didn't know the people. We didn't know how to raise money. We didn't know any of these things. So we decided we needed a lot of help. And the way we were going to get this help was by applying to a startup accelerator program, the one on the left side. It's called the Brandery. The brandery is specifically targeted toward young companies, which don't really have, maybe don't have customers, maybe don't have a fully developed business model yet, but have a great team. That was the important part. And going to this accelerator program was very, very helpful. We learned a lot, and I'll tell you about some of the things we did during the program on the next slide. But even after that program, we still decided we needed more help. And so after that program, we went to the second program called Y Combinator. That one's in California, one of the most well-known programs, and it's designed for companies which are a little bit later stage, already have customers. So we needed a lot of help, and I just want to, I mention this because it's so important. You know, everyone needs a lot of help when they're starting out, so don't be afraid to go after and find that help. What did we accomplish during this accelerator program? Well, we thought about it, and we made a list of every single thing we needed to do before we could have a customer. And that was what we worked on. We took this list and said, look at all of these things we need to accomplish, figure out, decide, design, before we could have our first customer pay us money. That was our goal. And so we try to do all of those things as fast as possible. That includes the basics, legal things, banking, setting up the company, formal business. It includes figuring out the insurance policy. Many people said the insurance that we needed for this business was impossible. Many people. But we did it anyway. We figured out a way to do it. We figured out which city we would open in. 1 city, 2 cities, West Coast, East Coast, we weren't sure. So we had to make that decision. We looked at what kind of operational model we would use. We thought about having people send keys in the mail to the person renting the car. We thought about a kiosk. We thought about partnering with the airport. We thought about having our own employees at the airport. So that was a big decision as well. And finally, we made this website, which was really bad. It was really, really bad. When you made a reservation, what happened was that we had an email inbox that would get a message, an email message with the reservation. And then someone would have to manually copy the information from the email into an Excel spreadsheet. And the way we tracked our reservations was in this Excel spreadsheet. So it was really, really basic. For a technology company, really bad. But it was good enough. We did what we needed to do in order to launch the company. And we did that really, we weren't ready to launch, but we did it anyway because we needed customers. We needed people to pay. We needed money to start this operation, and it was so hard to find it from investors. We thought the idea was great, you know, and people loved the idea because everyone wanted to meet with us. But the problem was that we were in a big industry with a lot of big competitors, a lot of big money, people who knew what they were doing, and we were 18 years old. We had no idea what we were doing, and no one believed that we could actually do what we said we wanted to do. And so it was very, very hard. We only managed to get a small amount of money after 4 months. So we knew we needed to have customers so we could show investors that we could do it. So we started our operation first at the train station next to the airport. No permits, we weren't following the rules at all, but we launched it anyway. We had no sign. I'm surprised we had any customers because it was very shady. But we did it, and customers did show up. And then after about 2 months, we opened the official parking lot, and that's that one you see here. So this isn't what it looks like on day 1. This was about 2 or 3 months afterwards. We really needed to show our investors that we were growing the company, that users wanted to use the service. But the problem is that if you're a customer and you go to our website and you see that there are no cars for rent, you say, well, this company must not be very good. I'm not going to use it either. So we didn't want people to go to our site and see that we had no cars. So what we did was we made friends with all of the small rental companies nearby. And we rented about 40 cars from them total, with all the money we had raised. And we brought the cars to our parking lot, and we put them in our system under fake names. And then suddenly, people said, oh, this company has a lot of customers. They must be good. And so people started giving us their own cars as well. And this helped us meet our goal. We had customers, we had revenue. We showed the investors that, yes, people wanted to use the service. We could do it. And then we were able to raise a lot more money. We raised about $5.5 million from investors after that, about 3 months after starting our operation. But at the time, it was still very basic. I remember I was in an investor meeting, and I was still I took a customer service phone call in the investor meeting, because we had I think 1 employee, and it was very, very basic. So once we got this money, our big focus was figuring out how to scale the business, how to grow it from me being at the parking lot every single day to being able to open multiple locations throughout the United States. It's a big, big, big challenge. And we had to learn how to do that, and we made many mistakes along the way. But you can see we opened in Boston a few months after San Francisco, and then again in Los Angeles. The important thing for us was that we were very flexible, and we wanted to solve problems. So imagine you have car keys. If I have 5 cars, I can put the keys all in my pocket. It's only 5. But once I have 10 cars or 15 cars, it's too much. You need a different solution. Maybe you can put them in a box. So we put them in a box. And then once we had 25 cars, the box didn't work either, because it was too hard to find the right key. And so then we found a solution where we had little hooks, and we put each of the keys on a little hook. And that worked too, until we had 100 cars. And when you have 100 cars and 15 employees, you still can't keep track of the keys this way. It's impossible. So we had to change the procedure again. And all of the parts of our company, our operation, were changing so fast all the time. We had a problem, we designed a solution, we implemented it, and then the next week we had the problem again, designed a solution, and kept implementing. And we kept solving these problems repeatedly all the time. That was what I did for the whole first year. I'm not going to bore you with the details of kind of how we grew the company, because I could talk for hours about that. But I will say it became a lot more professional. You can see the difference between this location here and the very first one that I showed you. It really was kind of nice. And we had customers, and we were growing really well. But after about 4 years, or about 3.5 years, we ran into a big problem. And it wasn't our problem, but it was a problem in the market. And what was happening is that Uber and Lyft and other on-demand ride companies were getting really cheap. And investors saw that these on-demand ride companies were developing the autonomous driving technology, and started to believe that on-demand rides would become so cheap that fewer and fewer people will own cars in the next 10 to 20 years. That's what people in the United States believe to be the case. And so we needed to keep raising money from investors. But unfortunately, no good investor is going to give $20 or $50 million to a company that's based on people owning cars if they think people won't own as many cars. It doesn't make sense. People like to invest with the trend, in the direction of the trend, not against the trend. And we would have been an against the trend investment. So based on that, we decided that we had to sell the company. And that was a very, very difficult decision. We loved the business. We really loved the business. We worked 7 days a week, many hours a day, to make the business successful. But we realized that there was this problem. It was outside of our control. We thought about it, we decided we couldn't do anything about it, and so we decided to sell. So what next? What did I do after that? Well, I sat around thinking about it. I wrote down a list of all the things we did wrong at the company, which was a very long list, by the way. I think it was 10 or 12 pages long. And I started talking to people. I started talking to my friends to see what they were doing, what kind of businesses they had. And I found a friend who had a warehousing business that was quite successful. It was small, only 2 warehouses, but it was successful, and I really liked the business model. So after talking to him, I decided to join him in that company and help grow it. And I want to make a point that that's still entrepreneurship. You don't have to come up with your own idea to be an entrepreneur, to work on startups. You can help grow a company as well and be part of that. And I think that's still very, very entrepreneurial. So the company is called CustomSpace, this warehousing company. And basically what it does is it provides warehousing and storage space and office space for small businesses. You can think about it as a little bit of a co-working space or a maker space that is oriented toward businesses which have a physical product or have a manufacturing component of some kind. We wanted to provide this service to companies and make it easier for these kinds of companies with physical products to grow. Because we saw that they weren't being served very well in the market with the existing alternatives. In the US, when you try to rent a warehouse, first of all, they're all very big, too big for a startup, and then they make you sign a very long deal, like a 1 or 2 or 3 year deal. And what kind of startup can commit to 3 years? It's impossible. So these spaces aren't oriented towards startups. They're not good for startups. And we wanted to have space that's good for startups, that makes it easier for entrepreneurs, not harder. And so that's where the idea for this company came in. And here's a picture of what it looks like, one of the units. It's really simple. We have Wi-Fi and electricity here, and you can do whatever you want. You can have your import-export business. You can manufacture some small product. You can store furniture. If you're a moving company, for example, you can show your product. Maybe you make some custom, like a bicycle or something. You can show it. Many, many types of businesses here, and it is a little bit like a maker space, and it's a part of the startup infrastructure that makes it easier for businesses to operate. But that's enough about me. So now you're wondering, I have this idea, or maybe I don't even have an idea for a startup, but how do I get started, right? What do I do? And so the first thing, start small. You can make more mistakes when you're small. There's less damage when you do make mistakes, and everyone makes mistakes. That's okay. But it's a lot easier to do this. It can be just you. It can be just you. You can start out and you can have this small business just like I did with my iPhones. And I learned a lot from that business. And you will learn a lot too if you just start and do something small. This is gonna sound really strange, but I love failure. Because you learn a lot when you fail. As long as you don't repeat it again and again, failure is great because you learn what not to do. And big companies don't innovate as well as small ones exactly because people in big companies are so afraid to make mistakes. And you need to make mistakes to innovate. It's part of that process. You have to make mistakes. So it's okay to fail. It's totally fine. And that's why you see so many successful companies run by serial entrepreneurs. Because guess what? The first time, people usually do fail. That's just how it works. It's okay. You learn a lot, you take it to the next company, and it's better. And in Silicon Valley and the United States, I think investors are more likely to invest in someone who has failed, and they understand why, and they learn something from that, and has a new company, than someone who has never failed before and is going into their first company. People understand that. People understand failure, so it's okay. Second point, you can do this business on the side. Many investors here would want to kill me, or in the United States, for saying this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because doing it on the side allows you that safety net that I talked about, the one from university that we had. You know, many companies, many startups start as side projects at a university or a bigger company. So it's okay. You can finish the degree, your university degree. You can keep working at your company, your big company, while you start working on your startup. It's okay, because you have that backup plan. And that's a great thing to have while you're working on your new idea. It's a nice safety net. Now, this point seems really obvious, but I promise you it's not. Make something people actually want. I see a lot of companies, and I'm sure the investors in this room would all agree that they see a lot of companies that are started because someone thinks something is cool. They have a cool project or a hobby, but they're not actually building something someone wants. So with Flightcar, I'll tell you what we did. We actually sat on the bus, taking people from the parking lot to the airport and back, and asked them, would you use this company? We asked. Now, you might ask, well, I don't know who to ask if they'll use my business. And I'll say, ask your friends. And you say, well, but my friends are my friends. And they'll say, yeah, of course I would use it, and even though they actually wouldn't, and even though they think it's a terrible idea. Well, here's what I say. If your friends tell you they'll use it or they'll buy it, tell them to pay you right now, even though you don't have anything to give them. If they actually pay you, then they'll probably want it. It's a great way to test, even on just your friends, to see if it's a good idea or not. Now, another thing, many people often have this idea that, it's like their company is something, but with an extra feature, or something, but a little bit faster, or a little bit better. That's a bad company. People don't want to switch from what they're already using. If you made a WhatsApp that opens, a tenth of a second faster, no one's going to switch. It's just existing companies have so many strong effects that prevent people from switching. You have to be a lot better or a lot cheaper, or hopefully both. The best companies are really both. In order for a consumer to notice you, there's so many ads. There's advertising everywhere, on the internet, on the highway, on the billboard, on the TV, on the radio, on the smartphone, everywhere. There's so much advertising. For someone to care about your company, you have to really be a lot better. I'm serious about this point. If you don't have a good idea, copy one. Just go copy a good idea. Like, I'm really serious. Just taking a look at this map, I mean, these are all payment gateways. They do the exact same thing. And I put 10 of them on the map here just so you can see. But there's another 50 of them that I was too lazy to put on this map that have the exact same business model. And they're all across the world. And it works. And it's a coincidence that I'm using this example because I know there are challenges here. But if it were easy, then there wouldn't be a business opportunity because someone would already do it. So it has to be hard. It has to be hard to get it running because otherwise there'd be 20 people doing the same thing. By the way, that's actually a really nice thing about being in a small country like Sri Lanka. In the US, if there's a good idea, there's 10 companies doing it. Like, for example, 2 years ago, there was a big craze. It was very hot, on-demand laundry service, where you had the app, right? And you press the button, and someone came to take your clothes and wash them and bring them back. And there were like 6 companies doing the same thing, and they all went out of business, but because it was a terrible business model. But at least in Sri Lanka, you have a smaller chance that you're going to have 10 competitors copying you. Hopefully there's only one. And this copying, it's everywhere. I will say that not every business model, of course, will work in every country, and we know that. But this copying is everywhere. And there's a whole company, it's called Rocket Internet, it's in Germany, where the entire business model is just to copy business models of other American companies. It's crazy. And these guys make so much money, or they did, and yeah, but they've done pretty well. They've done pretty well. Seriously, copy my company. Open a CustomSpace in Sri Lanka. Email me and I'll tell you how to do it. Do it, copy me. Get help. As I mentioned, we got a lot of help. We thought we were really smart when we went to start the company. We weren't smart. We were pretty stupid. We had no idea what we were doing. I'm still pretty stupid. But seriously, get help. People will help. People will help you. People want to help. If you don't waste their time, people will help, okay? If you go waste someone's time, they probably won't like you. But if you don't waste their time and you really make it worth their while to help you, chances are people will help. But this is crazy. Take a look at this. I should really follow my own advice. This graph of companies in New York City that have a top-performing mentor, an entrepreneur that's a top mentor. I mean, the success rate is crazy. Like, it's 3 times as high. This is serious. Find people who know your industry, who have an interest in your business, who want to help, and ask them to help. It really is a big driver in the success of startups. Having help, having people that know what they're doing help you out, because obviously you can't know everything. Another one that seems really obvious, but I have to say it. Talk to your customers. If you have customers, call them on the phone. Ask them, what do they think about your product? You're not a business, you're not a company until you have customers. And once you have customers, you have to talk to them all the time. Or if it's a purely online product, watch what they do. Install one of the softwares on your website where you can see where their mouse goes, you can track all of their movements. It's really creepy, but it's very important for understanding what your customers do and how they're using the product. If you don't understand how your customers are using the product, you're doing it wrong. You're going to fail. You have to talk to the customers. I promise you, almost every company, almost every big company that exists has pivoted in some way or changed their business model based on what their customers told them, how their customers were using the product, or some combination of those things. Really, I have one friend who had this big, complicated, online product, and they had some customers, but when they started looking at it, the customers were really only using one part of the website. And when they decided to eliminate everything but that one part of the software, the company exploded. So you have to really watch what your customers are doing and how they're using the product. And let me just say, you aren't your customers, okay? There are so many times when I thought something was really stupid, some change on the website or something we were doing, I thought it would never work, and it worked. And there were other times when I thought something was the greatest idea, was going to change the company, and customers hated it. So what you think doesn't mean your customers think the same way. Finally, it's really hard, and there's no way to get around this. You hear a lot from people who had some success. They were lucky in some way. They were in a good position, right place at the right time. But there's no way in getting around this. It is really hard. I remember I remember we had one day at the company at Flightcar, where I got up, I met my co-founder at 8:30 in the morning at the office for our 2-hour company strategy session. And at 10:30 after the meeting, I drove home and I went to sleep because I was so depressed. I thought the company was going to fail after the meeting. It was really bad. The next day, of course, I went back in the office and it was fine. But it's really hard, and there are really good days and really bad days, and you have to just know that's going to happen, and know that you be prepared for that. You really have to care. There are 20 times when we were this close to dying, and somehow we survived miraculously, but it's just hard. Yeah, it's really hard. It's a lot harder than a normal job. Why do I do it? Because I love it. I mean, I love seeing the company grow. I love seeing users that love the product, love the service. I love seeing all that work pay off. But you really have to love it, because it's too hard to do it if you don't love it. Now, maybe you think I'm crazy after all of this, and you've probably forgotten everything I said. So I left the most important thing for the very last, or for one of the last slides. Start now. Not after your vacation, not next week, not after you finish school. Start right now. Go home today and do something. Make a step towards the goal, okay? You have to start now, like right now. Only you can decide kind of your success. If you don't put in the right amount of work, you'll never get there. And in startups, I think there's so many things that are unclear. There's so many situations that are, difficult to predict, and there'll be so many obstacles that you don't expect. The one thing I can tell you about startups, there's one thing that's guaranteed. If you don't try, you definitely won't succeed. Thank you.